Hey guys, Christian here. Almost happy weekend. One quick thing I want to say about the Letitia James indictment. As you may have seen in the news, she was criminally indicted in Virginia by the Trump administration. This joins the previous political prosecution against James Comey. The reality is that these are vindictive and selective prosecutions. You're going to hear those words a lot. Vindictive and selective prosecutions. Not just, a way to describe these things. These are actually terms of art. And there's case law and there's ways that judges assess vindictive and selective prosecutions in order to determine whether the prosecutions are, as they say, righteous, if they are properly predicated. And these motions to dismiss for vindictive and selective prosecutions are not easy to win. They're very complex. The bar is very high. And I think I'm going to write about this, but we're seeing this already in one high-profile case. That is another case I've written about, which is the case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He right now is challenging his own prosecution in Tennessee because for many months he was incarcerated and disappeared basically in El Salvador simply for the fact that he was challenging his detention. It's a very long story. You can read my piece. But a vindictive and selective prosecution is when officials prosecute someone not because necessarily they have the evidence, but because they have a vindictive motive. They have it out for a person. Yes, the government can initiate a prosecution. They have, the discretion to do that, but they can just go after someone because they hate you or because they have a bone to pick with you. That is not legitimate. That is not a legitimate use of the prosecution power. And now Kilmar is challenging his prosecution on those grounds. And I've been seeing and looking at the filings. They are fascinating. That gives you almost a roadmap of how James Comey and Letitia James very soon will bring their own selective prosecution motions and vindictive prosecution motions to challenge their own indictments. All that to say is that there's already a lot of action in the courts about this. And the government, as is expected, will fight tooth and nail to keep these prosecutions moving in the courts. But lawyers are not going to give them an easy time. The lawyers for Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who are very good criminal defense lawyers, are putting up a big fight in order to throw out his indictment. And the government is fighting them at every turn. They don't want the papers to come out. In order to prove a vindictive prosecution, you have to almost get a lot of documents to read the state of mind of these officials. And that's why they don't want any of this to come out, because they know that if these emails and these communications come out, that they're doomed, that these cases will show that they weren't brought because of some legitimate reason, but simply because they had it out for the person that they were targeting. And in a system of laws, that's not how things should go. Have a good one.